Palmy, Palmy. Dude, the weird thing about not doing these for like a long enough period of time, I feel like is just you lose like the ability to do it. Like, but then we say this every single time. There's a spider on the bed. Whew, that's crazy. Okay, well, luckily I'm not sleeping on this bed. Ugh. There's like cobwebs on the bed for no reason. Uh, but I could have just left it there. So I'm now in the Sayadri school in Pune. Crazy. Um, so one thing I try to think of is like, there was a time where like, I would sit for a moment and like take it in. I'm really here, or like I'm really, and I try to think about the two times I did that, that like really stick in my memory. So the one time was in Ancona when I was sitting next to Agnese and her friend, and we're like cliff diving, and I'm just sitting there being like, wow, like when I left DC, did I think I would be on the coast of Italy cliff diving with these two friends that I made? And it was just kind of like a very surreal moment. The time before then was when was leaving the bay with Umar, and it was Umar, John, Sanjeev, Deep, Disha, Anoki, Tia. Like, John is my friend from Milan. Amr is my friend from UCSD being a roommate. Sanjeev is my friend from Forest Park. Deep is my friend from, Hawaii, who I met through Sanjeev. Uh, Tia is a friend through, going to Hawaii. And then Disha and Anoki were friends from Choksi that summer. Like, all just, four different groups. One, two, three, like five different groups, all just kind of together, and we were all just singing karaoke in SF right before I left. And that was also a moment where I like took a deep breath and looked at everyone around me, and I was like, damn, I'm really here. And I've been trying to do that here, whether I'm here or whether I was, sitting in this really beautiful mountain with Sumit, and I was just sitting there being like, damn. But it didn't like stay. It didn't marinate for some reason. And I'm really curious to like what allows your brain to really, if you want, like the first two times I did it, I didn't want to remember it. I was just like, I want to really be appreciative, and then I happened to remember it. But I feel like these times now I've like somehow told myself that when I do appreciate it and take that deep breath and really think about the moment, I'm gonna remember it. So I do it to remember it, and then I don't remember it. So it's kind of interesting how like that intention actually makes it not go down in that way. But I've been trying to do that, since the last time I recorded one of these, which may have been when I was in Gudalur. But since then, I went to One All. Yeah, I didn't record it in One All. I went to One All for 1 week. I went to Bangalore for a week, and then I came to Pune, and then now I'm at Sayadri. And this place, I think I'm gonna be thinking up some fire here for if I'm here for 10 days. I think for sure I want to be here for 10 days. I'm definitely very interested to talk to every person here, and there's a lot of interesting, I think, stories that are gonna come from 10 days of being here, talking to people. Also, it's crazy. Like I'm literally whoa. Like remember my toe like kind of went like that, and so I'm peeling it off, and it's like I'm peeling my skin off. It's crazy. These last 10 days have been very, I think, real. Mm. So I mean, I don't even know where to start. The thing is, it is hard. It is hard to do this. I remember Akash was telling me, he was like, I don't get how you do it, because for you it seems like your consciousness just flows very effortlessly. But it's like it is really a practice. I mean, you do it every other day. You do it once a week. It comes, but then you stop doing it, and then you're like, what do I want to say? Because it's like I think it's easier when I like express. These last few weeks have not been so like sit and internalize. It's been a lot more like experience, 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 and so it's like I haven't had the time to sit and really process what these experiences are. But this is how every time it starts. I bet you today as well, 55 minutes in, I'm gonna be like, bro, that was fire. I'm so glad I did that. This is also my new cut. If you look at it, look at that beard. I mean the mustache. But yeah, so I mean, there's so much to talk about, so I'm not gonna not do it today because I feel like I haven't done it in like a month, and I think there's enough to say. So one all was a really cool experience. I'm trying to think where the resistance comes from me, like explaining exactly what it was like. Well, why can't I say the exact details of where I stayed, what it looked like, the types of people I worked with? There's a part of me that wants to keep that experience to myself. Every experience, this whole India trip, I kind of don't want to share it. Then there's like, I mean, there's some possibilities for that. One possibility is I feel like I'll be disappointed, as I often am. I feel like nobody really ever cares about your story enough to like really ask and listen, and like, and that's totally normal and understandable, but I don't think anyone really cares. So it's like nobody's really asking me. Like, I don't think, I don't want to say it in knowing that like I'm the only one who's ever gonna really care about that experience. But then if this video journal is for yourself, then if you're the only one watching it, wouldn't you do it? The only reason you wouldn't do it is if you were assuming that someone else is watching, which maybe I am. But I feel like one thing to counteract that is this 1 year thing I'm doing. This is only going to come out 9/30/2024. So it lessens the kind of like, if I ever say anything wrong, the punishment only comes a year later, which like reduces the kind of weight instead of if I post this tomorrow, right? Because then I'm like, oh, okay. If it's a year from now, then it's like there's kind of that, okay, you can't say anything now to get benefits for saying that tomorrow. If even what you say, there's some benefit or punishment associated with what you say, it comes so far down the line that like you don't have to really conceptualize it yet. I like that. Because you know, one thing that is going to happen is throughout your life, if you like record this, you know, keep recording things like this and keep talking, you are going to say things that a year down the line you're going to be like, damn, I don't agree with that anymore, or damn, I don't think that's right. But yeah, so 1all was a really cool experience. It's ultimate frisbee spot. I think that's the other part. If it's a video journal, why would I explain? Yeah, that's part of it. Like if I'm just talking for this to be purely healing for myself, why would I explain what happened there? I know what happened there. That's exactly the point. Like me explaining what happened in 1all is not therapeutic to me at all. Like that's not what I need. That's not what my soul needs to like feel lighter, to like explain what happened there. But yeah, so then that's a real question. What does your soul need to feel lighter? So I mean, we know it's to feel heard, right? I mean, we talked about how this makes you feel heard, but like what does it mean to feel heard? I think feeling heard to me is like someone really caring. Like you can know how someone cares based on the questions they're asking. If it's something that you really like didn't explain and like pushes a little deep into this so okay, so let me give an example instead of just kind of giving this broad thing. So it's like, okay, let's say I'm telling you this is what happened at 1all. I went to this thing, you know, teaching life skills for young adults through the art of ultimate frisbee, and I saw these benefits. Like asking a question that's very specific to like, damn, like how do you think this can be implemented here, which like forces me to like really critically think, and also like shows that like you care enough about my goal of developing my educational philosophy so that you ask questions to do it for that end. Really makes me feel like, damn, you're aligned with what I want. Like I'm not really interested in like expressing the pure details. There's a part of it that makes me want to feel like I'm important. Like, oh, like I have something to offer. Like ask me questions to like learn from me. I really want to be somebody like that people learn from. But that's a question, like why? Why do you want to be that person? Why is it important to you that other people like, why is it important to you that other people ask you questions as if they're trying to learn from you as you're a resource? That's a whole question, a whole separate issue on its own, I think. But you know, one thing I was thinking about earlier was like doing this solo long trip. I feel like, how many times am I going to say like, I have changed a lot from how I did Europe to how I did India. First one, for example, those signatures I used to do, I started doing that again with pictures. But the signatures were very like, oh, I'm going to show a bunch of people when I go home that I went to Europe. And it's going to be really cool to have these signatures. One, I didn't show anyone those signatures. Those signatures are in my journal back at home somewhere. I think I used the blue one on that trip. No, I used the brown one journal. I've gone through 3 cool journals, I think. The blue, the brown. Oh yeah, the blue, the brown, and then the one with the lines and the leather, and then now this sick ocean one. This one's, they're all cool in their own regard. But yeah, so there was a big part of me, even when I went to the Vipassana, I'm excited to show people I went to this. I think this time around, I'm also realizing like I'm no longer in that bubble of like Georgetown either. So it's like I'm not going back to anything. I'm going back home. I'm going back to my dad. So like who I'm doing this trip for is really more myself and my dad. And I think the year, the next time I do it, it's not even going to be for my dad. It's just going to be for me. And so every year, like why the people you do things for kind of shrinking and shrinking. It's like, damn, what do you really want to do? But I think, this trip in general also just taught me a lot of, it can't just be all about you. But we can table that. The Europe trip was very definitely much different. Like I'm gonna do another Vipassana this year, and I'm excited to see what growth has happened from the last one to this one. Right, when I do spend 10 days exploring my brain, who is it now? Who is it then? I mean, I think there was a lot more. I'm a lot more free now, and a lot more kind of mature, and I'm at a place in my life now where I'm like, damn, I'm a grown ass adult, and these kids be calling me uncles. There's like one kid came up to me and said, "Uncle." I'm an uncle now. I'm getting there. I'm not there yet, but in the next few years, I'll be at an uncle age. And so it's like, I think I met Girish when he was this age, like when I was a little kid and we played that Lego game and I built him and I was like, master this, master something. And I just remember bullshitting about that hella hard. And then I'm pretty sure he was this age, right? He was uncle at that point. I was probably like 8, 7, so he's probably like 30. Um, Maybe even yet less. I mean, he might be like 44 or something. He might be 44, 45. So if that's true, that's 22 years older. So I was 8, he's probably 30. Exactly, he was probably 30 or 29, something like that. I remember him being in school. I think he was at Kansas at that point. Damn, I can't believe he was a kid at some point. It's like these people always are just like older in your brain, but like, I wonder who I'm that for. You think like for Shruti, I'm just an older person, like, but she's like seen me be a kid too, so I don't think it counts. I didn't see Girish as a kid, so it really is like who sees you for the first time now. Like which kid sees you? Oh, like the kids I taught maybe, so I see me like this now, so they're probably like I'm like this all the time. Yeah, but Europe was different. Yeah, I kind of like I was like, oh, I'm in Europe with like, I'm going home to something. This is an experience that I'm like going home to. Now that this trip is just so much longer and I'm in a different place in my life where I'm not going back to anything, that it feels more like this is my life. Like there's no going back. And I think that's the idea that needs to fundamentally break about true vacationing. This idea that, oh, it's back to the real world, that concept I think is very, very problematic. And I think it's just not true. When you're on vacation, that is the real world. The real world of your life is that you're there at that moment. And when you go back, it's a different adventure. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going back to something else. It's not that I'm going back to the US as if I'm going back to the same thing that I was at. I'm going back with a different set of understanding, a person altogether. So it's no longer the same environment that I'm navigating, because the person doing the navigating is different. And so the perception of the entire reality is different. So it's like I'm not the same person. So I'm not going back to the same reality. And I think that is a critical difference. In my head, when I say things like that, I'm like, oh, that's a profound idea. So feeling heard would be someone like actually like validating that idea is a cool idea. But the reality is maybe that idea was trash. Like what I just said there, I was like, bro, like everyone knows that. Or not even everyone knows it. It's just like, it's so elementary. Like, what, do you want a cookie for that? And that's also fair, right? Like, maybe your ideas aren't as like profound as you think they are. And that's something that has to take another level of self-reflection of like, why do you feel the need to say something profound all the time? Like, maybe you're not. But that would be a hard pill to swallow, right? So much of my identity is built around, oh, I think I'm a profound person. And so it works best, I think my relationships work best with people who like validate that part and like treat me like I do have something to say. But the people who don't care, right? Like a lot of people, like don't really care about what I have to say. They don't really think I have anything profound to say. Those people, I think, also have like. That's why I have a harder time with those people, right? More niche with those heads. Like, they didn't really like act as if like anything I had to say was of worth. I mean, they didn't ask me a single question about myself, and so that was also interesting. I think you can't expect everyone to like want to learn from you, and I think that's another thing of like letting go of your ego. Not everyone like cares, and not everyone. Many elements of that. Not everyone thinks you have something to say, which is fine. Not everyone cares about what you have to say, even if you do have something to say. And three, not everyone is that type of person who wants to like learn from people. They may learn from books or professors, but they don't want to learn from just the average Joe Schmo. So yeah, Joe Schmo. I like that word. What about Schmo Joe? What about Joe Blow? Tired. I don't have any Wi-Fi or service here, which is like interesting. I don't think I've ever stayed in a place where I don't have access to either. I've had access to like bad service, but even when I was at the last Vipassana, there was service there. There was service everywhere. I don't think I've ever been to a place where there's no service and no Wi-Fi. Like I'm just like straight disconnected from the world. Oh, it's like such is life, dude. I'm actually really proud of myself and thinking about posting this a year later. You know what? All the time, I like want to give myself like a I don't know, pat on the back. And I feel like if I can keep doing these more consistently, like I can even increase the kind of delay, maybe like 2 years and then 5 years. Like what if I start delaying these 10 years? Like, oh, I'm only going to see this 9/30, 2033. That would be crazy. And I think it'd just be cool also, like as you die, to like still have these videos drop, and be like something people like look forward to. I mean, I don't know who. That's another thing I think is different about this trip than last trip. Last trip, I feel like I had people to like tell these adventures to, like Ellis, Arden. Like I was like hyped to be like, I'm gonna go back and tell them about these stories. This time, I'm like, dude, no one gives a fuck about my stories. Like nobody cares. My parents don't care. Like Milan's not really gonna ask me, like just in general, like no one has that much time to really like be like, okay, explain every single thing. Explain what the Butterpoo was like. Explain what like working at One All was like. Explain what working at Vidyodaya, and explain what being in Bangalore with your cousin was like, and explain what the Vipassana will be like in Delhi. And I mean, it's just nobody's gonna care that much, because to care that much means to like really kind of put your own self in the side and be like, see, that's the thing. So when I was talking to Varsha, right, Varsha is one of the most awesome humans I've ever met, the woman who runs One All. One thing I realized when I was talking to her is I was like, dude, when some people just gravitate just so much energy towards them, whatever energy means, it's a very broad kind of wonky word. Then let me think of a better word. She gravitates a lot of... She doesn't gravitate anything. What she does is she really sees you. She like listens and she treats you like a person, like you're actually being seen as another human that's equal to her. And so when you receive that level of focus and attention, all of a sudden you have to do that back to her. Because you're like, somebody who sees me this deeply is not just like a walking around Joe Schmo. Like, this individual is also a very, very special individual. And so you're forced to confront the uniqueness of this person, and you kind of have to contend with it. And to do that, you have to humanize them. And so I feel like I'd sit there listening to her, or sit her, watching her listen to me, and I'd just be like, dude, this is a whole-ass human that's also existing. And is also having such a complex, beautiful experience themselves. And I feel like oftentimes you can run into people and just like not humanize them, but just be like, that's another being, like another dog walking on the street, another person walking on the street. But it's only a few times where you're like, that's a person, like myself, like my brain, that brain. Like it's not often that happens. And I think some people demand it more, not based on like, oh, I'm Bill Gates, I'm Obama. I think those people are still objectified in the sense that like all they are is their accomplishments. They're not them because of their like humanity. Like nobody's like Obama's like the just the most, like I don't know. You just feel so held and seen when you're like this guy was the president of the United States, is extremely powerful and has done awesome things and is very well known. And so you've objectified him to his what he's done. So LeBron, he's not just like a really amazing human being. He's also, I'm not saying he's not that, but I'm saying he's also one of the greatest basketball players to ever play. So he becomes an object of all these accomplishments. It's not the human. But take somebody who's just like, I don't know, like the way a parent looks at a kid. It's not necessarily like my kid's done A, B, C, D. That's why I love this person. It's just like that person is everything because it's just them as a human. And I feel like some people can see you like that. It's not for anything you do or you are, but it's just for some essence about you that they can. But for them to be able to see it, that means they see it in themselves. And I think that's what like Varsha does so amazingly. It's like she makes you feel that level of seeing, and it's like I can't like you realize you can't do that yourself. I can't do that. I can't give that back to her. I'm not at that level of I don't know like wokeness. But yeah, so that was one cool thing about One All. I feel like I'm meeting her. I'm excited to just keep that relationship going. But also, I don't know, dude. The thing is, like, look, to really make a change or to do anything in your life, you have to commit to it for a long time. I was thinking about it with children, right? It's like a long term project you're committing to. It's not like a 3 year project. It's not like I'm going to live in DC for 2 years. It's like you're committing to this project for a lifetime and at the very least 18 to 25 years. Like, it's not something that's going to be done in 3 years, 4 years. And I think that's the same thing with building Videolia. It took 50 years. They built it in 1970. That means the first generation of people who worked on that now have passed it up to the next group. They're done. So like their entire baby project is continuing past them. And to have that type of hindsight, you have to like look past yourself. Be like, I'm going to build something so large that it's not going to end when I end. It's going to end much later. When I think about re-educate, I'm like re-educate is going to be done when I'm done, right? It's small level thinking. It's not like, oh, this podcast is going to be at the forefront of education reform for the next millennia. Like, why not? Why can't you say that? Why can't you say something bold like that? Like, it doesn't have to end at you, right? But you have to think like that large. You can't be like, oh, like I've been thinking about re-educate is something that's going to be done when I'm done with it. Maybe it doesn't have to be. And so it's like this long-term thinking, I think, is something I learned a lot from Videolia, right? Like, I mean, just you can't be focused too much on the next 10 years. It has to be on the next 1,000 years, 500 years, 50, 100 years. It has to be larger than you for something great to be created. Nothing great ends at when the creator ends. Apple can't end when Steve Jobs dies. Otherwise, this Apple's not as great as it is. If Apple continues for 100 years, all of a sudden it's like, damn, Steve Jobs created that. So, yeah, so we're talking about the objectification of greatness, and I think that's a fair point. Also, talking about greatness, I think the Drake album's dropping in 6 days, hopefully. I don't even listen to music anymore. I've, like, fallen off music listening hard. So, yeah, I mean, hanging out with Lakshmi was amazing. I think I had one of the best, like, family times I've ever had in my life, those 4 days. It just, like, was a perfect balance of like them being like culturally tied, as in like still being Chettiar or whatever, but also them being like far enough away from it that I felt like I got to experience them as humans outside of that bubble. So I got to experience like, okay, Lakshmi still put me on some of the Chettiar stuff, which was cool. And then I also got to experience like them living in Bangalore, which is like more free, like being a human. Like it was just cool. Like all four of them were just awesome. I learned a lot about just human development from like seeing how Chinmay cries as much as Abhi. And understanding that, like to a 3-year-old, crying is the way they express power over anything, right? Like if I need to convince you something, I have the ability of speech. If that doesn't work, most men have the ability of power. Okay, well, I'm talking to you, you don't listen. Okay, I'm going to fight you. You don't listen. Kids don't have that. Kids don't have the ability to fight, nor do they have the ability to speak like very well. I was Googling it. They were like the average vocabulary for 3-year-olds is 1,000 words. So then you can't logic someone out of it. So you have to use what you have, and that's your ability to cry, cause a scene, and it works. In her case, it works very well. And so it's interesting how, like, someone else had said, when I went and stayed at Project Defy, they were talking about how kids want attention, and then another girl had said, all people want attention. That, like, struck me for some reason, because I'm like, a lot of the kids were doing what they're doing for attention, right? Like you said, Jinmin wants my attention all the time, but that's what mom should do. Where is it that we have derived this, like, need for attention? Why do we want it so badly? What purpose does attention serve us? I mean, hyper attention on ourselves is not good. I mean, if you look at any famous person, it's not good to have too much attention. But no attention seems, I don't know if it's a bad thing necessarily. You need to garner attention when you need attention. So if I'm dying on the street and I'm like, help, 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 you have to be able to garner attention when you need attention. That's not the only time you need attention. You need attention when you need help. You need attention when you need to reproduce. You need attention in many different periods of your life for different reasons. Like if you're about to die, like many times like that, you need attention. So your ability to garner attention when needed is a really useful skill. But to always have attention on you is just not useful. So it made me think, okay, if 3-year-olds are built to get attention so much, how much am I built? How much is my life and my behavior built towards garnering attention? Because I've never experienced true zero attention, right? What that would look like is nobody on your phone ever hitting you up. I still have so many people who love me, from my parents, mama. Someone's always thinking about me in the world. Somebody, my family, my friends. So I'm confident, and I can walk with the confidence knowing somebody in the world at any given time, at least one person in a day thinks about me. And probably every day my mom and dad. So every day somebody in the world thinks about me. If I put together Mylan, Choksi, Akash, Saba, my whole family, which is Sedu, Lakshmi, Sumadhyata, like, I could probably put 20 to 30, 40 people who, like, I'm in some periphery somewhere that, like, I would cross their mind once a month. And there's more than 30 people. So that's more than once a day. But it's like true unattention is having zero. Like, not a single person thinking about you. And I think there's something... What would happen is if nobody thought about me, right? I would have this insane amount of freedom where I could just be like, all right, well, no one's thinking about me, and then do things. But then, I think because of the power of your actions, I think over time, for example, the number of people I've met just in passing, that I'm pretty sure for some, there has been a meaningful, to some extent, interaction there. There's definitely at least 20, like, I mean, if I could think, like, I know Agnese, like, while I was in Italy, like, staying with her, I know she thinks about me occasionally. I know Manuel probably thinks about me occasionally. Naveen, like, from my younger days, there were so many people, but if I'm just thinking about these, like, travel days, like, I don't know, like, it just happens, right? Like, I mean, you want to think, that one, like, some random people, one time I was in San Diego, like, 5 years ago, I was having a bad day, I was crossing the street, and this really beautiful woman who was driving down, like, taking a left onto the intersection, smiled at me. I remember that to this day. So random, but, like, does she, like, in that sense, you leave, so when you leave the house and you actually interact with people in a relatively positive way, some impacts are just formed. And so in that sense, I just feel like I sometimes just lose the track of, like, where I was even going. Where did I even start? I don't know. I feel like I'm recording this more to, like, have something recorded, because, like, I don't want this whole, like, trip to just go unrecorded, than it is, like, I have something to say. I feel like sometimes I have something to say, but I don't get to the camera at the time. I'm like, I want to record. I want to, pensive some stuff. it'd be cool to do text analysis on all these videos and be like, what were the themes every decade? You know, for every like year, I have at least 10 videos, which is cool. Like 10 videos per year is good. Honestly, I'm happy with 10 videos per year. You don't need more than that. I try to do one a week, so that's 52 a year, but like 10 a year is great. Over the years, that adds up, and it's good enough. But these are cool. It's cool to just see, you know, that change is happening. Change is happening. And it'll be cool to post these in a year and maybe have like a notification pop up on my phone of like, oh, 9/30/2023 popped up, like, you know, on 2024, same year. I don't know where I'll be 1 year from now. Actually, this next year is hella unplanned. I don't have any plans. There's no plans in my life. It's all right. This opportunity came up. Let's go do it. This, you know, there's no plan. So we'll see. I kind of like it. I don't know. I don't know what the point of life is, but I like it. Does that matter? I'm not sure. But yeah. Okay. I love you. It's 30 minutes 40. Let's try to catch it exactly. 30 minutes 51 seconds.